All right, today's project is going to be a cord keeper. This is a simple little strip of fabric with Velcro designed to keep all of our cords in check. Whether we're sticking them in our backpacks, putting them in the cabinet or a little drawer, you'll never have to find your cords in a tangled mess. I highly suggest making a set of these, maybe 3 of them, so that you can organize everything with a matching set. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, here's our material list for the cord keeper. We're looking at having 2 pieces of scrap fabric measuring 4 inches by 6 inches. You need 2 of those, 1 for each side. I picked a coordinating fabric set. Then you'll need hook and loop tape, otherwise known as Velcro, 1 hook side, 1 loop side. We cut ours at 2 inches, and they're a non-traditional width based on what we had in our stash. We'll need a marking pin or a clip to mark where our opening is and some pins to keep everything together. So let's go ahead and get started. We're first going to start with our fabric going right sides together, lining up all those raw edges. I'm going to take time to mark where my opening will be. It's going to be right in the center of my longest side. It needs to be large enough to get my fingers in there and pull my fabric out. I'm going to also mark it with a pin or a clip so that I know exactly where to start and stop sewing. We're going to add our pins so our fabric does not shift while we are stitching this together. And we'll head over to the sewing machine. All right, now at the sewing machine, we're going to start from our first mark. We'll be stitching, pivoting on all corners and ending at our second mark. I'm going to pull my pin here for a minute, my clip, as a reminder. Okay, this is going to go right at that line. Start with our needle in. We're going to stitch all the way to our corner and pivot. We always leave our needle in while we pivot. Went a little too far there. And make sure my pins are out of my way at this time now that my fabric is secure. And I'll move my clip out of the way as well, reminding myself that I will stop at that other mark. I did not do any back stitching as this is our foundational stitch, and we will be back stitching on our final top stitching. Okay, now we're going to go over to prep this for the iron. All right, we have just finished our stitching. We have gone around our entire perimeter, leaving that opening for turning. So now that we're going to prep this for turning inside out, we do need to clip our corners. Why we clip the corners is to reduce bulk. If we have bulk in our corners, we're going to get these lumpy, bumpy edges. But this, by reducing the amount of fabric in the corners through these clipping of corners, we will end up with something that lays a lot flatter and is a lot easier to stitch through. We're going to just turn this project inside out to reveal our beautiful right edges. Give that a quick turn. I'm going to use my fingers to point into those corners to really push that fabric out. Once I have them finger pressed out, I like to use the eraser end of my pencil, get in there and give it one last nudge towards those corners. My sewing machine stitches are really nice and tight, so it should give us a pretty great pressed corner. Get that last little bit out. There we are. Okay, now that we have that, before we hit the iron, we do want to take a moment to make sure our opening is tucked inside deep in there to line up with the straight edge we already have. So we're just going to help that out, giving it a little gentle fold so those raw edges can get tucked in. I'm going to hit it with the iron. For this, we will press meaning we'll just press down with the iron for a moment. We don't need to wiggle it around or anything. We just need to get that to be flat on that edge. All right, next we're going to do 2 parts to our sewing. We're going to top stitch around the entire perimeter, back stitching at the start and the end, and we'll also be adding on our Velcro patches. So let's move over to the sewing machine and do the next step. All right, now we are going to stitch around the perimeter of our project. I'm going to start just a little bit in on my first edge. This is going to be a scant 1/4 inch, maybe even an 1/8 of an inch. This is just a decorative top stitch to hold everything together. By top stitching around the edge, we also end up with a project that'll lay flat forever. Like you wash this, it will not start to get bunchy on the edges. It'll keep everything nice and tight and flat around those edges. Just like before when we stitched around, we will be pivoting on our corners. Oops. This one has got a little stuck there. Let me give that a little press. A little gentle pressing with my finger. There we go. And as we get to our final pivot here, you can see where I started and ended. I will do some back stitching overlapping those stitches. Is it on our project. So our next part is we need to add our Velcro, and our Velcro is pretty easy to do here. We just need to remember that they have to hook together eventually. So one has to be on one side and the other on the other. So I'm going to put my loops on one side here. I'm going to put my pins in, hold that in place. And then I'll flip my fabric over and add my loops to the other side. These are just centered right in the center of my strap and towards the ends. Again, your Velcro may be a different size, and that is totally okay. All right, now we're going to top stitch our patch into place, our Velcro patch into place. We're going to line this up. We're going to stitch very close to the edge, pivoting on all corners and back stitching at the start and the end. We'll get that started, couple back stitches. Once I get this first round down the side here, it'll anchor that on enough that I can pull my pin and keep going. I get to the edge and pivot. Always keeping our needle down when pivoting, as always. Alternatively, if you would like, you don't need to do a straight stitch. You could do a zigzag, which I think looks fantastic. And of course, I'm using a contrasting thread just so you can see it here, but I would use a coordinating thread that matches your fabric or your Velcro. And go back stitch. And that's it. We'll repeat on the other side and we'll be all finished with our project. And you've made it! This fantastic little strip of fabric with Velcro is now going to organize your entire life. All of your cords are never going to be tangled again. Make these projects for all your friends. It would be a fantastic gift, especially someone going off to college, or maybe your mom or dad that has an unorganized car console. This would be an awesome gift. I suggest that you could add rounded corners to your straps, change it up on your contrasting Velcro in your fabrics to match everything that your friend would like. Happy sewing!